Hey, I'm Olivia,
And hey, I'm Dad.
and you're listening to Soarin' Around WDW. Happy Wednesday, flight crew. Today we are back to continue our treasured attractions series with the second part of the Haunted Mansion attraction. Today we are going to talk about the alleged background story of the attraction, some special events, and behind the scenes tours that have taken place inside and in honor of the mansion, as well as some hidden Easter eggs to look for the next time that you ride that attraction. So, getting to the background story of this ride, I'll let Dad start off telling you a little bit about some of the reasons that the Haunted Mansion has really fascinated guests for decades.
There is no single official backstory. Instead, the mansion is a patchwork of tragedies layered over generations, shaped by Imagineers, cast members, ride updates, and fan theories. What follows is the most commonly accepted combined legend, a story that explains why the mansion is haunted, who the key spirits are, and how you become a part of it. The mansion was built around 1820 by George Gracey, a wealthy entrepreneur, at least by day. By night, he was rumored to be something far darker. George lived in a mansion with his son, Edward Gracey, and later married a woman named Constance. Constance appeared elegant and refined, but she carried a deadly secret. She had a habit of marrying wealthy men and ensuring they didn't live long enough to enjoy their fortunes. George would not be her last victim. George Gracey died under mysterious circumstances, and his spirit is believed to be the figure seen hanging in the stretching room, a visual reminder that despair has always lived in the mansion. When Edward discovered the truth about Constance and his father's fate, grief and rage consumed him. Legend says he cursed Constance so she would never know peace, and soon after, Edward himself died within the mansion. From that moment on, the house was no longer just a home, it was a prison for spirits. Haunted by the ghosts of her past, Constance sought help from a powerful medium, Madame Leota. Leota was brought in to communicate with the spirits and rid the house of its haunting. But once she learned the truth about Constance's crimes, she instead placed a curse on the mansion itself, binding every soul who lived and died there to remain forever. The mansion became a spiritual trap. Constance, furious at this betrayal, attempted to silence Leota, but it was already too late. The curse took hold. Constance lived out the rest of her life within the mansion, surrounded by the spirits of her victims, unable to escape even in death. Madame Leota's spirit endured as well, forever bound to the house, forever calling the ghosts to rise.
Years later, the mansion passed to another owner, Master Gracey. Master Gracey fell deeply in love with a young woman named Emily, and the two were engaged to be married. But tragedy struck once again. Depending on the version of the tale, Emily was either betrayed, trapped, or murdered on her wedding day. Some legends say she was locked away in the attic, others that she fell from the window, but all agree on one thing. Emily never made it down the aisle. Believing his bride had abandoned him or unable to live with her loss, Master Gracey met a tragic end of his own. His spirit now welcomes guests in the stretching room, unknowingly inviting them into the same fate. Emily remains in the attic, appearing as the ghost bride, heart still beating, eternally searching for the love she lost. By the time you arrive, the mansion already holds 999 happy haunts. As you explore, the house seems to watch you. Portraits follow your movements, the walls stretch, reality bends, Madame Leota awakens the spirits, and suddenly the ghosts become unmistakably real, dancing in the ballroom, singing in the graveyard, celebrating eternity. Then comes the attic, then the fall from the attic, and when you reach the graveyard, something has changed. The caretaker trembles, not because of the ghosts, as some may think, but because you are now one of them. That's why the ghosts appear solid. That's why they celebrate. That's why there's always room for one more. Walt Disney never wanted a single rigid explanation. He encouraged Imagineers to tell many stories layered together. That's why different versions fit different scenes, and why updates like The Ghost Bride or Constance the Black Widow continue to reshape the legend. The Haunted Mansion isn't just haunted, it's alive. And every time you ride, the story changes, because now it includes you. So question kind of there. There's obviously two very different versions of the story that people think of between Constance or Emily, Master Gracey, kind of his role in things. But do you kind of prefer the Ghost Bride dad as a mysterious figure, or do you like when Disney kind of leans into clearer storytelling like they did with Constance Hatchaway and that kind of story?
Yes, I do remember the Ghost Bride was there forever, right? That was the one that when we first started going there in the late 90s. I know that was the story there. It was always kind of like what's going on with that, right? I
Yeah.
do really like the Constance Hatchaway thing. I like the Hatchaway. The last name's actually kind of a great play on words, right? Yeah, I like that, and I like the way you go by and there has a picture of the different husbands and their heads disappear as you go past. And it's, there's some technology there that wasn't really available probably, a number of years ago to do something like that. So I do really enjoy that part of it. It is a little more of a clearer story. The new way would definitely be my preference.
Okay, yeah, I feel like I agree. I liked the elusiveness before, but I think having a little bit more of a clearer story makes people maybe even like get into it a little bit more or think up, a little bit more of her backstory, giving her a name, like you said, a very punny name, definitely makes it a little bit more enjoyable for me too. Why do you think that Disney fans are so drawn to attractions that don't have one definitive story?
Probably because everybody's different. Everybody has different ways of thinking through a story like that, and they have their own version that they like, or another version that they've heard from some other person, or maybe an Imagineer that said something about it at one time. I know it's been all over the map over the years, so I just think it just opens it up for kind of believing in what story you want to believe in and just going with it instead of just having it be one certain story. Because there's a lot of ways the Haunted Mansion story goes. It's been like that ever since I was a little kid. I've heard all kinds of different stories over the years. So I enjoy that actually.
Yeah, I think a lot of the original Disney attractions are kind of like that. Like Pirates of the Caribbean, you don't fully know the story going on there. There's a lot of different people and characters within that. Jungle Cruise, even a little bit, doesn't necessarily have like a strong background story. I know, they've made all these movies, but there's not necessarily one story for the ride. So I agree, it's that part is pretty neat. So, getting over into some special events, different things that they've had over the years. They've had many different special events in honor of the Haunted Mansion, as well as behind the scenes tours. But we wanted to kind of talk about a couple of the bigger ones today and get into that we thought were pretty neat and interesting. Some from a long time ago, some from more recently. But, Dad, why don't you start off kind of talking through some of these special events?
Yeah, this is something, it was fun to go through this again because I remember kind of telling you kids about this a long time ago. That's something I really wanted to do. So we'll cover that one event also. Of course, over the years, Disney has done something remarkable with the Haunted Mansion. Beyond being one of the most beloved attractions ever created, it has occasionally crossed the boundary between ride and reality, becoming a fully immersive living environment. Three events in particular stand out as legendary moments when the Haunted Mansion stepped beyond its ride track and into history. Between the intimate invitation only dinners held inside the Haunted Mansion and the later large scale themed galas, Disney briefly explored an ambitious middle ground, a fully immersive guided evening that combined fine dining, live performance, and exclusive after hours access to the attraction itself. On September 25th, the 2002 Walt Disney World hosted Disney's Dining Experience Presents Dinner at the Haunted Mansion, an event that remains one of the most elaborate haunted mansion experiences ever offered to the public. Guests checked in at guest relations and were given seating assignments printed on parchment style paper, complete with hand burned edges and ominous wording. Each assignment doomed attendees to a specific table inside the mansion, setting the tone long before the first course was served. Once all attendees had arrived, the group, approximately 70 guests, that's 70, was escorted through an unusually empty Magic Kingdom at dusk. Now, personally, that alone would be cool to be walking through there and nobody there but this small group, right? I mean, to me, that's just starting out would be super cool.
Yeah, definitely a unique experience.
The route itself felt ceremonial under the train station up Main Street, USA, around the hub, across the bridge to Liberty Square, and finally aboard the Liberty Bell riverboat. Well, that's not going to happen anymore now, is it?
Yeah, nope. Rest in peace to the riverboat.
The riverboat cruise served as a prelude to the evening. Hors d'oeuvres and wine were offered as the boat circled the rivers of America without its usual narration. From the deck, guests could see the haunted mansion glowing in the distance, already setting the mood for what awaited them.
After disembarking, guests were discreetly routed to nearby facilities before being led directly into the Haunted Mansion grounds. There, they were greeted in a queue by a live character, Madame Carlotta, introduced as the mistress of the mansion. Dressed in dark, time worn attire, she welcomed guests with a blend of humor and eerie charm, weaving Haunted Mansion trivia and lore into her introduction. From there, guests were summoned into the mansion's front doors, which mystically opened after audience participation. Inside, they were welcomed by Broom, the mansion's head butler, who guided guests to their assigned tables with a steady stream of dry humor and theatrical flair. Dinner took place throughout multiple areas of the attraction, including the pre show room, the stretching rooms, and the pre loading area, all transformed into dining spaces. Tables were dressed in black and red linens, candlelit centerpieces of living and dead foliage, and full wine settings for a five-course meal. The menu leaned heavily into the Haunted Mansion theming, with each course presented as part of a swinging wake. Dishes included roasted squab, squid ink seafood soup, salads built around foie gras, I believe that's how you say that, shaped like tombstones, raspberry sorbet served atop an illuminated ice skull, beef tenderloin with prawn, and a final dessert of blood orange mousse and creme brulee. Wine pairings accompanied each course, sourced from vineyards chosen for their haunted backstories. Throughout the evening, the mansion became part of the performance itself. The stretching rooms periodically activated, complete with dimming lights and distant thunder. A slow organ style version of the Haunted Mansion theme played softly in the background. The serving staff, just as ghoulish figures, remained deliberately silent, communicating only through gestures and grunts, as if they were under a spell. Live entertainment was woven into the night as well, including appearances by Broom, Madame Carlotta, and a magician named Abner, who blended sleight of hand with humor.
Once dinner concluded, guests were directed to board doom buggies for a ride through the haunted mansion. While there were no stage surprises inside the attraction itself, the ride followed a recent refurbishment, allowing attendees to experience refreshed effects, lighting, and sound, often noticed more clearly during the private after-hours operation. The evening did not end there. After exiting the attraction, guests were escorted through Liberty Square, where they were treated to a surprise appearance by the Headless Horseman, who rode past multiple times before vanishing into the night. The group was then guided back to Main Street, USA for the park's traditional closing announcement before boarding a waiting monorail back to the Transportation and Ticket Center. In hindsight, the 2002 dinner at the Haunted Mansion stands as a unique moment in Disney history, a time when attraction was not just a ride, but the centerpiece of an entire evening. Unlike later events, it combined dining, live performance, park-wide movement, and the Haunted Mansion itself into one continuous narrative experience. It has never been repeated.
So, do you think that Disney would ever attempt to do something this immersive again, or is this kind of a product of a different era?
Well, just like the paper fast passes, I think they're gone forever. I just don't see Disney offering those super special events anymore. We haven't seen something like this at this level. I don't think since 2002. I don't remember anything else. Again, we were talking about some other special events that they had that were super cool, but this one seems to just go way over the top in so many
Yeah.
ways. Um, yeah, and I think it probably doesn't make them any money, so they're not going to bother. Even though I think this was like $500 a person back in 2002, which was a few bucks to do just for one evening. So, and it sold out very quickly, if I remember right.
I'm sure it did. Yeah. So you think it's just like a money thing? Like, even though they could, I mean, they could up that and make good money per ticket, but just like the time, the effort, having to do it after park hours or like on an evening where they'd close the park early and potentially lose money. So you think it's just probably the not easy to do, so they don't want to do it.
Yeah, yeah, so much going on now with all the different, all the parks seem to be have some sort of something going on, right?
Yeah.
Uh, because of that too. There's a lot of money going out for all that. I just think it was just one of those things that you're just not going to see too much anymore. The D23, programs sometimes can be pretty cool, and some of the panels they have are pretty awesome. But yeah, I would be surprised. I would if they did it again. I would love to be part of it.
Yeah.
Because I definitely uh, didn't do it back then because we were already, going to the Magic Kingdom every other weekend, like we talked about, and I couldn't really justify $500, at the time, raising, a couple small kids and all that good stuff. But yeah, I would definitely go if they did it again. I would love to go, but I'll be shocked if I ever see that again in my lifetime. It's something at that level. I just don't think it will happen.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, it'd be really cool if they did it, but there's so much else going on. It might be difficult to make something like that happen. So, for many Haunted Mansion fans, this obviously remains one of the most ambitious and unforgettable ways that Disney ever invited guests in to fully kind of take a step inside of the story. But one of the most talked about experiences was an exclusive Club 33 event known as the Ghostly Retreat. This was created in honor of legendary Imagineer Mark Davis. This event remains notable not only for its rarity, but for the unprecedented access it granted to one of Disneyland's most iconic spaces. So, this was a Disneyland event. The first event we talked about was at Disney World. The evening began not in a ballroom or a private dining room, but exactly where any Haunted Mansion experience should, in the actual stretching elevator, similar to this first event. Guests descended as usual because, as we talked about prior, the Disneyland version of this attraction is an actual elevator in the stretching room. So when it descended down and the doors opened, the guests were met with a breathtaking sight. Inside the portrait corridor, a long dining table had been arranged for 34 guests stretching down the hallway itself. The table was meticulously designed to mirror the Haunted Mansion's iconic ballroom scene. Elegant place settings, glowing candlelight, fresh floral arrangements, crystal goblets, and fine china really created the illusion that the ghost's own banquet table had been brought to life. Even the tablecloths, plates, and glassware echoed the aesthetic of the attraction itself. Adding to the significance of the evening was the guest list. Because the event celebrated the 100th anniversary of Mark Davis's birth, several Disney legends were in attendance, including Alice Davis, animator Andreas Deha, Imagineer Kim Irvine, and Disney historian Tim O'Day, who served as the host. Later in the evening, Bob Gurr joined the group for dessert, further cementing the event's place in Disney history. I mean, what a star-studded guest appearance that they had. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I could probably rate that right along the 2002 dinner at the Haunted Mansion at Walt Disney World, only because of the people that were there.
Yeah.
I think the first one, the 2002 dinner, was probably a little more elaborate, but it didn't have the marquee guests like the one we just discussed. So, following dinner, guests were invited to board the Doom buggies for a private ride through the Haunted Mansion, but with an unexpected twist. Instead of simply passing animatronic ghosts, Imagineers and Disney legends themselves were positioned throughout the attraction. As the Doom buggies glided through familiar scenes, these figures waved and interacted with guests, transforming the ride into a playful and surreal reversal of roles. One of the most memorable moments occurred in the graveyard scene, where Bob Gurr appeared holding a lantern, playfully exaggerating the caretaker's movements, complete with theatrical ghostly sound effects. Unlike typical ride operations, guests were permitted to take photographs, even using flash, capturing moments that have never been possible before. That's super cool in my book to be able to do that.
Yeah. So, how surreal do you think that it would be to ride this attraction while Imagineers are standing inside of the scenes? Like seeing Bob Gurr as the caretaker is like blowing my mind.
Yeah, I mean, Bob Gurr is a legend, and he's in his, gosh, early 90s, and he's still sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
He still does a lot of interviews. He had his own little podcast show. I've seen on YouTube a number of times, listening to all his stories, working with Walt Disney when he was a very young man back in the 1950s. And he's done a lot of things beyond Disney. It's just not all Disney, and that's probably a whole other podcast. Yeah, I mean, that would be wonderful to be able to be around those people, and some of those people now are gone. So I know
Hmm.
Alice Davis has passed on, and her husband Mark was very instrumental in putting together a lot of the gags and a lot of the drawings and things in the Haunted Mansion. I mean, the whole graveyard scene was Mark Davis, and yeah, so that would be surreal to be on have a dinner and everything like that with those type of guests.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Is there something special about being able to actually dine inside the attraction in these first two events? You get to actually be in the attraction and eat that makes it feel more forbidden or magical or like, just very special. I don't know how else to describe it, but what do you think it is about it?
Well, it's a little forbidden because no one else is going to do that, right? I mean, you have to have
Yeah,
a certain setup. Like, wow, are we really in here eating inside where we normally just walking through normally to go on the attraction, right? So,
right.
for me, it's it's my favorite attraction. So here it goes. It's forbidden and it's magical, both for me. It's to be able to do something like that would be definitely over the top. If they ever do that again, we'll have to do it, Liv.
Yeah, we'll make that happen. The podcast money will pay for it, right? All
There
that
you
big
go.
checks we're getting here. So, while the ghostly retreat was an unprecedented experience inside the attraction itself, another major Haunted Mansion event expanded the concept even further. In 2011, Disney hosted Room for One More, a Haunted Mansion themed evening at Disney's Contemporary Resort. Rather than placing the guests inside the ride, this event recreated the mansion's atmosphere on a grand scale with the Fantasia ballrooms.
And before the dinner began, guests passed through a cemetery themed pre function space featuring exclusive Haunted Mansion merchandise, themed photo opportunities, and a silent auction showcasing rare Disney artwork. Among the most notable auction items was a sculpture of Kevin Kidney and Jody Daly, a three-dimensional interpretation of the classic Hatbox Ghost artwork, originally featured on an early Haunted Mansion record. The piece sold for thousands of dollars and became one of the evening's highlights. As night fell, guests were ushered into the main ballroom by the Haunted Mansion's lantern-carrying graveyard caretaker. How cool is that? Setting the tone for what followed. Inside the ballroom had been completely transformed into the Haunted Mansion environment, complete with flickering lights, thunder effects, and Gothic decor. The centerpiece of the evening was the appearance of the attraction's ghostly organist, brought to life and performing throughout the meal. And I can also tell our listeners that I sent some YouTube videos to Olivia that I found during the day today, exactly kind of recording some of the events that went on here at this ghostly retreat
Yeah.
that was held at Walt Disney World. It's pretty cool. The organist itself was really over the top, but it was, yeah, I watched a lot of it. I think I saw that before a couple of years ago, and it was very well done. The organist filled the room with somber melodies, occasionally delivering eerie, distorted versions of familiar Disney songs, including When You Wish Upon a Star. Between courses, appearances by a ghost host and a caretaker added moments of cryptic humor, timed precisely with lightning flashes and thunderclaps. Following dinner, the event transitioned from theatrical immersion to historical exploration. Walt Disney Imagineers Jason Sorrell, Jason Grant, Eric Goodman, and Pete Corsillo took the stage for an in-depth presentation on the Haunted Mansion's history. The discussion covered the attraction's origins, unused concepts, and behind-the-scenes stories, as well as new insights into recent updates.
One particular intriguing detail involved the interactive queue, whose sculptural elements were directly inspired by unused concepts from Disney legend Blaine Gibson. Another revelation focused on the updated hitchhiking ghost effect at Walt Disney World. When the skeletal ghost lifts his hat and releases what appears to be birds, the figures are actually stylized flying versions of the bat sanctions found throughout the mansion's queue, a subtle detail many guests might never notice. Together, these events demonstrate how the Haunted Mansion exists far beyond the boundaries of a single attraction, Though carefully curated experiences like Ghostly Retreat and Room for One More, Disney has allowed fans to step deeper into the mansion's mythology, artistry, and history.
Beyond exclusive dinners and themed galas, Disney has occasionally offered something even rarer to Haunted Mansion fans, the chance to step behind the curtain and see how the illusion itself is created. One such experience was the Marceline the Magic Kingdom tour at Walt Disney World. Designed as a premium, in-depth exploration of Disney history, the tour included backstage access to the Haunted Mansion that few guests ever see. Participants were taken behind the scenes of the attraction's iconic ballroom scene, where they were able to view the ride's mechanics up close. Here, the famous ghosts are revealed to be the result of a carefully engineered illusion, a modern adaptation of the Pepper's Ghost effect. Guests observed the massive mirrored space below the ballroom floor where full-scale audio animatronic figures perform in a hidden chamber, their reflections creating an illusion of transparent spirits dancing above. Seeing the scale, precision, and craftsmanship behind the scene offered a deeper appreciation for the technical brilliance that makes the mansion's most famous moment possible. Of all these things we've talked about now, when I read that, and I remember hearing about this briefly a long time ago, I would love to do that because I'm a behind the scenes guy. I love to see how things operate. I've read a lot of books on, behind the scenes of Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion and many things, Tower of Terror. I would love to do that tour. I don't think they even offer it anymore. I'd have to look. I don't think they do. That was a while ago.
Yeah, they don't currently offer it. I'd have to look up exactly when it stopped. I think we'll have to do an episode about like old tours they used to offer, what they offer currently, because we both together, when I graduated high school, did the Keys to the Kingdom tour, and you got to go a smidgen behind the scenes to get onto the attraction, but it was nothing like this. I mean, this is like totally a person who is interested in behind the scenes at Disney's dream, getting to see how this works, going underneath, looking at the mechanics. I mean, it's super, super awesome. But no, they do not currently offer this tour. And this was a Disney World tour, just to be clear. So this was the Magic Kingdom version. And while the Marceline to Magic Kingdom tour focused on the attraction's physical mechanics, other events have explored the Haunted Mansion's human history, the people who imagined it into existence. From time to time, special Walt's Estate and Imagineer tours have been offered, often as fundraising events benefiting organizations like the Garner Holt Foundation, for example. These tours do provide a rare opportunity to visit Walt Disney's private estate, accompanied by early Disney Imagineers and artists, some of whom worked directly on the Haunted Mansion during its formative years. During these intimate gatherings, attendees hear firsthand of how the mansion evolved from concept to reality. Stories are shared about abandoned ideas, creative disagreements, and the collaborative process that shaped the attraction. These discussions often reveal how the mansion's tone, kind of balancing the eerie atmosphere with playful humor that we've talked so much about, was carefully crafted through the years of experimentation and debate. Unlike formal presentations or museum exhibits, these tours preserve the Haunted Mansion's history through oral storytelling passed directly from the actual people who helped build it down to the fans who continue to cherish it. Together, experiences like the Marceline to Magic Kingdom tour and the Imagineer led estate tours really reinforce a central truth about the Haunted Mansion, which is that its magic lies not only in what guests see on the ride, but in the artistry, innovation, and personal stories that are behind it. Through exclusive events, behind the scenes access, and living history, Disney has allowed the Haunted Mansion to really become something that is way more than just an attraction. So, Dad, do you think you would rather experience the recreation that was kind of more like the one that they did at the Contemporary an after hours event or one of these behind the scene tours? Which do you think? It sounds like maybe the tour would be something that you're super interested in, but what do you think you would pick if you had to choose?
I thought the reenactments and stuff were all great. They were fun. It was entertaining. But to go to the attraction when it's your favorite attraction and be able to see to ride through it and maybe get a little more backstory on some things and actually then go be really a real behind the scenes tour and see some of the things like the ballroom, Pepper's Ghost effect and how they do it. I've seen videos of how they do it on YouTube, but to go there and actually be there and see how they did it, to me would be almost like a bucket list thing for me, to be brutally honest.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I agree for that for sure. I think, yeah, getting to be able to do the behind the scenes tour would be up there. I also think that's like the most tangible to have something like that come back. I feel like that would come back before an after hours dinner would come back. Do you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, because I think that's something that's easily done and there's really not much cost to it, right? I mean, you could
Yeah.
to show somebody behind the scenes is really other than having, paying a couple of cast members maybe to work overtime or something, short of that versus putting some big event together like the one that was done at the Contemporary. That was pretty elaborate. I'm sure there was some serious money put into that. It looked like a wonderful presentation that they had. But yeah, I definitely think it would be relatively inexpensive to do the behind the scenes version for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So, some fun things that we wanted to talk about, like little Easter eggs that are in and around Walt Disney World's Haunted Mansion. There's obviously a ton of them, so we're not going to talk about every single one. We want to leave some things for you guys to look into or to find yourselves and to discover through research and things like that. But there are a few that we wanted to kind of go through, and we can kind of take turns talking about each one. So the first one is one that I remember vividly finding as a kid, looking for intentionally, and still looking for each time that I go today. There is a missing wedding ring hiding in the queue. And as you approach the Haunted Mansion, be sure that you look down because you can spot what's called the bride's wedding ring embedded in the pavement. And some backstory about this. Originally, the ring was unintentional. It was just a leftover piece of metal pole that was removed from the Haunted Mansion's queue. However, Disney cast members and Haunted Mansion fans kind of created the story that it's actually the bride's wedding ring from the attraction. Because so many guests loved this little bit of behind the scenes story and lore, in 2011, when they did the big rehaul of the queue, Disney Imagineers actually removed the pole remnant and replaced it with a real ring. Now, Dad, I know you've also looked for this pretty much every time we go, right?
Yeah, I remember
So,
reading about that way back when. And I always thought, and maybe I'm wrong, I thought it was when we exited the queue coming out on the way over to the pet cemetery, you're, exiting the Haunted Mansion. It's right there typically. I don't remember it being at the entrance, but maybe in 2011 they put it more in where the entrance is as you're going in. But I
yeah,
also saw it back in the day. That was probably before 2011. It was at the exit. And just as you were exiting the Haunted Mansion, just as you got outside, it was right there. So
yeah, no, you're right. I guess maybe that was incorrectly written down because I'm gonna look up where it is now, but it definitely used to be at the exit.
yeah,
Let me
maybe
see.
again, maybe they moved it or something because I can't honestly say I've really looked for it in a long time. It's been probably 20 years since I looked for it, even though I've been on the Haunted Mansion many times, the past 5, 10 years anyway. Okay, the next one to look for is the Dread family. Now, personally, I never heard of any of this before, so this was very interesting reading through all this. So, at the very beginning of the Haunted Mansion queue, guests are introduced to the Dread family, a wealthy but tragically doomed family whose members all met untimely ends, mostly at the hands of each other. Their story is told subtly through busts, epitaphs, and hidden carvings, leaving it up to the guests to piece together exactly how much a family member died. The order of death begins with Uncle Jacob, who met his end by poison. His epitaph hints that he swallowed something fatal, and if you look closely at his bust, you'll see a carving of a pet snake, a nod to the deadly venom that finished him off. The culprit? His nephew, Bertie, whose own bust carries a small vial carving, confirming his role in the murder. Next, Bertie is shot by Florence, Uncle Jacob's wife. Bertie's epitaph mentions being shot through the heart. Sounds like a Bon Jovi song.
Yeah.
While Florence's bust displays a pistol carving, making her the prime suspect in the deadly chain. Florence herself doesn't last long. She is suffocated in canary seed, a detail noted on her epitaph, and the clues are everywhere. The twins' busts feature a dead canary carving, and a nearby marble statue depicts a bag of canary seed, tying the murder to them. The twins, in turn, were bludgeoned by cousin Maud, as indicated by their epitaphs mentioning bumps on the head. Maud's plaque shows a hammer hinting at her method. Finally, Maud meets a more accidental end. She burned herself alive, which her epitaph calls going up in smoke. The clues are in plain sight for observant guests, Her marble bust has matches tucked into her hair, and a small portrait near the hitchhiking ghost scene shows her lighting a fire. So that was all new to me. I think I remember seeing one of the gravestones says the Dread family or Dread, if I remember right. But beyond that, this is, and I've seen these statues as you go in, right? It's just as you're
Yep.
starting to go into that new extended queue. But I never knew this whole backstory. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I also did not know this new backstory, and that's a lot of these hidden things we're going to talk about are in this newer section of the queue. But I thought that was kind of clever. I'm like, oh, okay, next time I wait in a longer line for this attraction, I'm going to have to look a little closer at this. But I was looking at pictures and I was like, oh, that is funny. I like never noticed all of these little tiny details before. So it just shows you how much work Imagineering kind of goes into this attraction for sure. So the next thing is the hidden message on the Poetess Crypt. So while you're waiting in the new section of the queue for the Haunted Mansion, you want to look at the crypt because there's actually a hidden message here that you can decipher. You might have noticed in the past that the crypt has several symbols on the books there. But here's something you may have not known. All of those symbols actually are a reference to the mansion and its lore. For example, some of the symbols include floating candelabras, Master Gracey's headstone, Constance Hatchaway's hatchet, the caretaker's shovel, and Madame Leota's floating trumpet. However, they're more than just imagery and references. Together, these symbols spell out a message. Each symbol represents a letter of the alphabet, and when you put them together, they form words and sentences. The tricky part is there's really no hints as to which symbol represents which letter, but if you're stuck in the line for a lengthy amount of time, it's kind of a fun game for guests to play and a great way to kind of kill some time when you're stuck back there. Have you ever I'm sure you've seen these books and kind of the different things that they have on them, but I don't think I ever realized that they were supposed to like spell something out.
Yeah, I'll look at it differently when we go through there. But a lot of times you're floating through there so fast, you don't want to tie up the people behind you. Everyone's kind of walking through.
Yeah.
At least the times I've been in it, the line never gets really hung up long enough to really spend a lot of time looking at everything like the Imagineers probably wanted you to take the time to look. But
Yeah.
I'll definitely look at some of these things the next time I go through there because I find all this very interesting, very creative as most of these Imagineers are, right? The Composer Crypt, speaking of crypts in the queue, Composer Crypt is packed with subtle musical and literary references for guests willing to look closely. On one side, the instrument carvings, a horn, bagpipes, harp, and a pair of bones on a xylophone, and a drum all pay homage to the Phantom Five, the mansion's ghostly musical ensemble. Each instrument corresponds to what they play, while the drum was a special nod to folkloric phantom drummer of Tedworth, the mysterious ghostly percussionist from the legend. Say that fast 3 times.
Yeah.
Above the instruments, the organ section features a sculpture of the raven, the same bird that appears later in the ride, creating a clever visual echo for attentive guests. On the more surreal side of the crypt, the carvings are directly inspired by the unbuilt Museum of the Weird attraction. Among these is a one-eyed cat, a reference to the Black Cat, an unused character originally intended as the ride's antagonist in early scripts. This feline also draws from Edgar Allan Poe's Gothic horror story, The Black Cat, blending classic literature with Disney Imagineering in a single detail. Now, interesting thing about the Phantom Five, I've never heard that before either. It's like Phantom Five. I think I mentioned in another podcast that we did that I have a postcard of it. Really, it's the Phantom Three because it's just the three guys, but it doesn't show the other two players that are part of this band. And I always thought it was so cool. They were just playing these instruments, these ghostly things. I had this postcard from Disneyland from 1970, but I didn't realize there were two other guys there. I guess they were there all the time, but I never really paid attention to them. So there's a group of five there that are playing, not three. So I learned something when I read through this, like, oh, I didn't know that. So after all these years of going through there, how many times I'm still learning new things, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I do remember you talking about that postcard. I can't remember which episode it was, but yeah, that is funny. That is just something you never noticed after all these times. So, lingering in the stretching room, there is a ghostly secret. If you've ever been on this attraction, you are obviously aware that once the pre-show ends and the speech is done, the corridors open, and people always try to kind of rush out and head for the doom buggies. It's like a mad dash. As we talked about last episode, we stand by the door so we can get out the quickest. We know where the door is that's going to open, but that can be the wrong move. Instead of following the crowd, kind of stay back and try to be the last one out of the stretching room. If you stick around long enough, depending how quickly things are moving, and listen closely enough, you'll have the chance to hear something not many people realize happens. Ghosts will tell you to get out. I feel like I do remember experiencing this once or twice, especially when we were younger and we would kind of linger a little more. Do you remember this, Dad?
Yeah, I remember because we were always trying to look for the red LED light to get to the door to get out quick, right?
Yeah.
But I remember reading somewhere, just hang around because you're going to hear this ghost telling you to get out. So of course, what do? We waited, and I think even to the point where the cast member that was in there standing by the door was like, "Okay, you got to, go out now."
Yeah.
But we did hear it. Definitely stayed long enough a couple of times to hear them tell you to the ghost to tell you to get out. So yes, we have heard that a couple of times.
Yes, yes. All right. And then maybe my favorite fact is your next one.
Yes, as a hidden tribute to Mr. Toad is a Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. When exiting the ride, you'll pass by the pet cemetery, which is filled with many tombstones that pay tribute to various animals and pets. That's very special to Olivia and I both because we both have dogs
Yep.
and had pets for over the years. So we love our pet cemetery. One of those gravestones is for Mr. Toad, who is from the book The Wind in the Willows and its Disney adaptation, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Now, I've never read that book. Have you read that book?
I have read The Wind in the Willows a long time ago now, but yes, it's like one of the more classic old school books, and the movie that Disney, has based it's like loosely based on the book. Mr. Toad is a character in The Wind in the Willows, but yeah, it's not directly the same if I'm remembering right. And I
Oh,
want to say it's kind of like Winnie the Pooh where there were like multiple stories about Toad within The Wind in the Willows, and they kind of picked a few like the motor car one to make for the movie, if I'm remembering right. I could be wrong
okay.
about that.
Okay. I'll have to read it sometime because I never have. Magic Kingdom was once home to the ride Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, which closed in 1998 to make way for the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh. This fan favorite attraction caused plenty of dismay when it closed. So soon afterwards, Disney Imagineers added Mr. Toad's tombstone to the graveyard to pay tribute to his ride. Now, I rode the one in Disneyland once in 1970, and I loved it. I think I told the story. I took my little sister on it. She was 3, I was 10, and it freaked her totally out, scared her to death as we drove our car toward the train and then ended up in hell.
Yeah.
But I never rode the one at Disney World, even though we were there and really back in, I was there 73, 70, 1978, and 96, 97. And then we moved down in 99. But during those first couple of times, we never got on the ride and rode it
Ah,
again. I wish we would have, but we just didn't. We ended up doing
are you
other things.
sure?
Do you remember doing it?
I think we have home
I'm pretty
video
sure.
footage. I gotta look.
Okay. Yeah, look, I right. Well, I have the same footage here, but yeah, look, because I know we sat in the car with my mom and dad, your grandma and grandpa, as a photo picture thing. Remember photo op, picture spot on Main Street. They had one of the Mr. Toad cars there, and we sat in that and took a picture. You probably remember that picture, but I
Yeah,
don't know if we ever went on the ride. But if we have video of that, I would love to hold that out and take a look.
I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna look at our home video footage, which if you are not on our Patreon, you should join our Patreon, and I will post our home video footage if I can find it. But I want to say we went on it either the trip that Regan was a baby in 97 for the 25th anniversary, or in 96, my first trip. I'm gonna have to go back and look. I will look, but I'm pretty
Okay.
sure we did ride it, and I have memories of watching it on the home video, and that's why I
Okay.
was so excited to go on it at Disneyland. But
Okay.
we'll see. I'll have to look.
I would be interested. Okay.
But yes, definitely, I think it's cool that they did this little thing at Disney World to give a little hug to Mr. Toad because I love Pooh Bear, but it is something special, that Mr. Toad ride. It is weird. It does feel like a fever dream. It's kind of weird to explain to people. Like you said, it's like you end up in hell at the end, but it is a super, super classic ride for sure. Classic dark ride. I'm glad they've kept it at Disneyland. The thing that I did not know anything about was the Nightmare Before Christmas tie-ins to the attraction. And no, we're not talking about the Disneyland version. We are still in Disney World. And Disney World's version of Haunted Mansion does not obviously get the seasonal overlay Haunted Mansion Holiday that Disneyland does, which we will talk a little bit about next week. Imagineers allegedly implemented numerous Easter eggs referencing the Nightmare Before Christmas movie throughout the Disney World attraction. So the next time that you go to Disney World, keep your eyes peeled for some of these spooky movie references. I know I will because I have not ever noticed this before. In the interior room, right before you enter the stretching room, look at Master Gracey's portrait. If you stare at his forehead specifically, you might notice an outline of Jack Skellington's face hidden on it. Once you enter your doom buggy and head for the library, look closely because two of the books are novelizations of Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, which, again, I've never noticed this before. When you pass through the attic, look for Sally. Constance Hatchaway has a doll version of Sally from the film in her collection. This is the only one that I think I have seen before, and I thought, that looks like Sally. And again, I'm not a huge Nightmare Before Christmas fan. I've seen it literally all the way through, maybe once. I've seen bits and pieces, and I know the music, but it's not like my favorite thing. So it's funny. Yeah, I noticed the Sally doll, but that's the only one I've noticed. When you're in the attic, you also want to look out for a book. Imagineers placed another novelization of The Nightmare Before Christmas in Constance's collection, complete with a silhouette of Jack Skellington on the cover. I didn't know, did you know about these little things that they hid for Nightmare Before Christmas in the Disney World version before we were researching this, Dad?
No, I had no idea. And I'm not a big Tim Burton fan, even though I think he's extremely creative and, creative
Yeah.
genius. Some of the stuff that he's done is pretty amazing. And I know your brother Regan loves The Nightmare Before Christmas and loves The Nightmare Before Christmas overlay at Disneyland. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, nod to him. But the only thing I've noticed too was the Sally doll by Constance Hatchaway. That's the only thing I ever noticed. And that's kind of, why is that there? But now it all makes sense. They do have these little nods all the way through. So these are some great things to look for next time we ride the Haunted Mansion.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So, ugh, that was a lot of spooky information. There are so many Easter eggs and fun gems, as well as celebrations and behind the scenes special events with this attraction. So, it was kind of hard to narrow down to be able to fit into an episode. So, we obviously did not include every single Easter egg or hidden thing. I'm sure all of them are not even known to the public. These are ones that we thought were kind of fun to talk about this week. Some we knew about, some we did not know about. And this marks the need to kind of shift this episode into a three-part series. So we have a lot of fun content on the books with upcoming trips. So stay on the lookout to the conclusion of this series as we wrap it up in the coming weeks. Before we buckle up for landing, our would you rather for this week is, would you rather do a behind the scenes tour of the attraction with Bob Gurr as your guide, or eat a banquet style meal and have a private ride through of the attraction with cast members acting throughout the ride?
I'll take Bob Gurr all day long to be able to hang out with a Disney legend like that worked with Walt Disney and the stories that he can tell. And I've already heard some of them, obviously, on different podcasts, but to be able to spend time with him and do a behind the scenes tour with him, even though he wasn't as involved, obviously, with the Haunted Mansion, like, many others were, Mark Davis to be one, and so many other ones, E.L. Gracie. But Bob Gurr was just an Imagineer that's been there since the right before the park opened. He helped put a lot of those attractions together back in the day. And I think he was involved with designing the Doom buggies too, if I recall. He was
Yes,
definitely
yep.
involved in that, which is a big deal. And many other of the attractions and vehicles that are tied in with Disney World and Disneyland. So yes, I would like to behind the scenes with Bob Gurr is the way I'd want to go.
Yeah, I agree. I just recently saw something on Disneyland's Instagram with Bob Gurr kind of standing by the castle and talking about how people should come for the 70th because it's just as magical today as it was then. And I mean, he's literally walking around like, I mean, he's 90 years old. He's old, but he looks great. It's just so cool that he's still so involved with the park. And yeah, we'll definitely have to do a Disney Legend episode on him at some point in the future because he's a super interesting guy. But yeah, so that is all for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully, you guys have been enjoying this Haunted Mansion content, a little bit about the East Coast Haunted Mansion attraction with some Disneyland stuff thrown in there. Next week, we'll kind of get into the variations across the different parks internationally as well, the cultural impact and legacy, including the films that have been made, and then some personal stories from us. But that is it for now. We will catch you guys next week.
Have a great week.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at Soarin Around WDW Pod, where we share fun reels, throwback photos, and dive into weekly polls and debates. If you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow and hit that 5-star button. If you are over on YouTube, subscribe and leave us a comment as well. If you're listening on Apple, a 5-star rating and a written review would mean the world. You can also now support the show through our Patreon at patreon.com/SoarinAroundWDW podcast by becoming a free or paid member and finding exclusive content and bonus episodes and videos there too. Thanks again for joining us. Catch you on the next flight.